It's a good morning to you. Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Zenzele Ndebele, and this is the Breakfast Club, a show where we talk about politics, many issues that are happening in our city and in our country. And as usual, these days it's election time. So we are going to be having a lot of content around election, talking to candidates, talking to analysts, and understanding voting trends and what people are looking for these coming elections. And of course, we want to understand what people want. We also want to talk to the candidates to find out what they are offering. And the site so anyone who is a candidate is free to come and interact with us. We don't mind which political party. As long you are a candidate, you have the space to come and talk to us and get in touch with us on our social media platforms, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. We are site ZW. Today in the program, we will be talking to Octavius Dumisani Nkomo, popularly known as Dumi. I've known him for a while in civil society, but today he's talking to us as the candidate or council candidate for Ward 5, and following a delimitation or the new delimitation boundaries. Ward 5 now consists of West Somerton, Bellevue, Newton West, Green Hill, part of Hillcrest, Montrose, Morningside, Ilona, Four Wings, Ema Industry, Ngale, S02EP. That is Ward 5. I think it is very important to know where your ward is, not only your ward is, but also where your polling station is, because chances are high that on voting day, a lot of people are going to go to the wrong areas and they will end up not voting. So we want to find out from Nkomo, really what drives him, who is Nkomo. But Nkomo, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Zenzele.
Yeah, I have known you as Dumisani, so it's actually news that your first name is Octavius. So, but for someone who has not interacted with you, my question would be, who is Dumisani Nkomo?
Yes, Dumisani Octavius Nkomo. I was born Konapa Bulawayo, Mpilo. And what drives me is community development. So I define myself as a development practitioner, as an advocate for community development. So from an early age, I've had a passion for community development. And one of the things I did after varsity, I did a bit of teaching. Then after that, I started an organization which was into community development, because that is my passion. Seeing people achieving their full potential, seeing people having access to basic services, ukuze abantu bakholise ubuntu babo. That is me. I'm an advocate for community development. I'm an advocate for human rights. I'm an advocate for a better quality standard of living for people, and that is development. So I'm all about development. I'm all about empowerment. I'm all about improving the quality of life of people. And that is what I've done for over 23 years, working with the organization I helped to start. I've been doing community development for 23 years. So it's what I live for, and it's the reason why I've decided to actually go for council, local authorities, because that is the level that is close to people. That is the level that touches issues of their own development, their access to services, their daily conditions, their daily living, their daily struggles.
You've spent, like you said, 23 years or so working in civil society, working with different organizations. And what has always been your experience with council? How have you interacted with them? And this and this? What has been your experience, especially working in Bulawayo and dealing with the city council?
I've worked with over 15 local authorities in Matebele North and South Bulawayo, as well as Eswatini as well. But I think the biggest challenge has been on the supply side, because as civil society, we're on the demand side. We're demanding quality services. We're demanding inclusion. We were demanding inclusion in decision-making processes, in policy-making processes of the council. But one of the things that I noted was that on the supply side, where council is then supposed to deliver services, where council is then supposed to involve people in decision making, there was a gap. Council has been struggling with providing services. Council has been struggling with involving people in decision making for a number of purposes. Some of them have got nothing to do with the council itself. Some of the reasons have to do with the state of the economy. Some of the reasons have to do with centralization of decision making. Some of the reasons have to do with the council itself, with decision making, with ability to administer efficiently within the council. So one of the gaps that I really noted was on the supply side, especially on provision of basic services in the context of a collapsed economy, in the context of a heavily centralized political and governance system, which has not allowed council to actually make some decisions. I'm sure you're aware that council has to have its budget approved by the Minister of Local Government, and key appointments by the council have to be approved by the local government board. So that in itself has been constricting for local authorities. But within that, there is still a lot that the local authority can do within the spheres of what is within its own control. I mean, there are things such as the state of the city. These days, you are told umuntu ewosumumbu in the city center. That is clearly not acceptable. Quite clearly, it's something that local authorities can do something about. The issues of tenders and projects that are questionable, quite clearly, those issues were within the province and jurisdiction of the council. So there are things that are within the control of the local authorities, and there are things such as the state of the economy and things such as lack of devolution and centralization that have contributed to council failing to deliver. So I've looked at that from outside and said, okay, but maybe instead of being a spectator or a commentator or somebody that describes problems like a soccer commentator, it's actually better to use those 23 years of community development, of involvement in local governance. I've actually been involved in programs to train councillors, design programs to train councillors, to train technocrats in councils, design programs to equip local communities to participate in decision making. So I thought, let me also try the other side, which is a bit more difficult than just the demand side.
I'm just thinking that if you happen to win, October khona, singaswela amanzi. Sebesivusana lawe yabona ukuthi yabona ikhansili le sokufonela lapha sokuteke ku Twitter lapho these councillors are the worst, you know. Are you ready for that pressure?
Yes, I'm sure that we are all aware that statutorily it's ZINWA that is responsible for bulk water supply in terms of the Water Act and the ZINWA Act. And the shortage of water in Bulawayo is actually a crisis of leadership, because it's been a crisis for 112 years. And the solutions are quite clear. They are long-term solutions. And the only dam that the government has built besides Ikwai Shangani it's just been one dam, Mchabezi Dam, in 1995. Whereas, you know, the colonial regime, Amakiwa, managed to build 4 supply dams between 1960 and 1979, which shows that actually it's central government that has been to blame. So yes, we were ready to bite the bullet. We're ready to advocate, to engage central government to ensure that Bulawayo has got water, because without water the city will die. So it's not a new problem. It's a problem which is 100 years old. It manifests itself in lack of planning. Kwai Shangani came in, they said they were going to finish it 3 years ago. It's still not finished. I hope that by the time we come in October, it will be finished, because it will significantly address issues affecting the city in terms of water.
Yeah, your ward is Ward 5, and Kusema Saladin, and a bit of industry here and there. But I'm sure you've walked around, you've talked to people. Do you think are some of the issues in your ward that you think the residents want you to address? Where do you think you're going to come in and really say, Lapa, we need to do something?
Yeah, so some of the issues in the ward are very basic. There are no street signs. When you turn by Moffat to actually come to this place, the road sign has been vandalized. It doesn't take a lot to put that in place. Street lights have been vandalized. We've heard that Bulawayo needs about 17,000 new street lights. So issues of street lights are a big issue. Issues of storm drains are a huge issue, but they can be addressed at community level. We also have issues that have to do with the state of the roads. Most of the roads in Ward 5 and indeed Ward 4, indeed the whole of Bulawayo, are in a terrible state. And hopefully in the long term, those are some of the challenges that should be addressed. Obviously, there are issues that are outside the domain of council, such as cable thefts and so forth, the issues of refuse collection. Although those are issues that people have raised. They feel it's no longer a safe city. They feel that we need to be with the Bulawayo that we were 30, 40 years ago. Most of the young people in these areas are not employed. So you've got about 2 generations of unemployed people who are sons and daughters of professionals. So people are not as well off as people think in Ward 5, because you've got 2 generations of people that have never been employed, unlike their fathers and their mothers who were teachers, who were nurses, and who were doctors. So the demographics as well of Ward 5 have changed significantly over the past 25 to 30 years.
Yeah, one of the issues that, or one of the interesting parts that I've seen with Bulawayo is that Bulawayo has a lot of diaspora, which of course, if you even look at nationally, I mean, diaspora remittance is, I think, nearing $1 billion now. Do you think the diaspora can play a role in reviving our city?
The diaspora plays a very important and significant role in the development of our city in 2 ways. First of all, in development. Imagine if we had throughout the whole of Bulawayo people from the diaspora then supporting well-planned development initiatives, whether it's youth clubs, whether it's solar lights, whether it's income generating projects for women and so forth. So the first role they have to play is in development of communities. Secondly, in terms of investment. There are a lot of people in the diaspora that have organized themselves into investment consortia. Surely it's possible to hold investment summits for the city. And our own sons, our own daughters, our own mothers in the diaspora are the people most interested in investing in the city, whether it's in green industries, in clean energy. There's a lot of interest in the diaspora in investment. Lastly, the diaspora community could also help us in twinning Bulawayo with various places in the world, Winnipeg, Wolverhampton, there's a lot of Zimbabweans there. And that twinning could help us leverage in terms of some of the equipment that is needed by council, whether it's fire tenders, it's ambulances, whether it's for arts and sports and so forth. So the diaspora does have a huge role in the reconstruction of Bulawayo.
The past 5 or 10 years have not been good for the council, and I find that when I'm talking to people have high hopes that the new guys are going to be like new brooms, high expectations, and we are talking about all these kind of things, and but we have also seen projects stalling like Ekotini and all these kind of things. As a councillor who is coming in, do you have any plans to try and push for these projects to at least be finalized or cancel the new serious people come in?
As somebody who's a student of project management, I have a very keen interest on huge projects such as Ekodini and indeed any other project. So it'd be important for the new council, once it comes in, to have a look at projects that have stalled and why they stalled. Was it because of project scope issues, risk issues, all of those issues which are part of project management? Was it because of contract management as well, in terms of the contracts that were signed with the contractors? Was due diligence actually done in actually engaging some of the project managers and so forth? So it will be very important to have a look at all those projects and find out, because it's a collective learning process. We can't just blame the outgoing council, but it's a collective learning process to say, why did those projects fail? Did we do adequate, your pastel assessments of those projects in terms of your political, economic, social, environmental, legal assessments of viability of projects? How was our project management like? How was our contract management like? So I think it would be very important for the incoming council to do an audit and an assessment of all those projects in order to be able to implement future projects more effectively.
I know at one point you were really not impressed about the buses all over. I think you actually, personally took it upon yourself to try and find out what was going on. Tell us about that story. What had frustrated you?
Yes, as a person that grew up in Bulawayo, as a schoolboy, I used to pass through the park every day for 6 years. I learned at Milton High School. It was very clean, it was very green, very serene, good for pensioners, good for families, good for young people as well. But what has then happened over the past few years is that the place along that corridor has been invaded by buses. And what was then happening, those buses were causing a lot of pollution, noise pollution, traffic, congestion for students at Evelyn. It was a pain for pensioners that wanted some quiet and peace. And again, it spoiled the beauty of our beautiful, I call it the Mzilikazi corridor. It spoiled. So I decided, as an individual citizen, I need to take action against this. So I did an individual citizen's action against that. And I'm happy that council actually took steps to remove those bus companies. And there's a semblance of order there. Because disorder is one of the new things that has been introduced in Bulawayo. People do things anywhere where they want. People fry, maize cobs in the city center. People do as they please wherever they want to. So I felt as a citizen, I can't just watch the city where I grew up being reduced to a ruin.
Yeah, ujarubona umumbu awuhambe abo 11 chicken in a trade go lapha. You find sausages, small gas stoves, and yeah, it's just not safe for those people who are doing that, because gas can explode anytime, and there are all people there doing something. I mean, one of the things also that I heard at one point you really did was, the issue of asking council to account for its properties. And we know the council has been, over years they bought properties, but I wonder if the council really knows what they own and who's running, who's now managing that. Yet they are always complaining about money, but it owns a lot of properties.
Yeah, sure. I think it's one of the duties of the incoming council to then come up with a detailed inventory of all the properties owned by the council, the state of those properties, the commercial potential of all those properties, and then come up with some sort of system to either dispose of some of the properties, commercialize some of the properties, and retain properties that are needed. But definitely, council needs to derive value, commercial and monetary value, from the properties that it has. Council has farms, council has buildings, council has various properties, and I see that as a great opportunity for council actually to expand its revenue stream by tapping into the potential that is there in terms of those assets.
Yeah, a lot is happening, and you guys have a lot of work, and yet you are still supposed to go out and campaign. It's like, you're moving from the campaign to city council, and there's a lot that tends to happen. Probably before we go into the campaigning, and one thing that I found people talking about today, and that I was also mentioning, is the issue of there's this proposal by council that we're reading in the papers that they want to privatize, or and bring in a private security company. Yet we are talking about security, we are talking about the council not being safe, we are talking about all these kind of things. Do you support such an idea?
Yeah, in terms of my personal vision of a safe Bulawayo, a safe city, I think that would be contrary to that vision. We need some sort of very strong metro police. We need to rebrand the police. Have a metro police. I understand the council has been trying to get arresting powers for municipal police. We actually need to strengthen, the municipal security arm. If we're talking about keeping the city clean, we need a municipal arm that will ensure that happens. And actually, revenue can be derived from the fines. I think fines have to be increased for litter bags. So there's a lot of work for the security apparatus of council. I think it would be calamitous, suicidal for us as Bulawayo to outsource security. It would actually cost more. I think it would be very suicidal. I think it would be very genocidal. I think we need to think through this. I think we need to research about this. We need to look into its feasibility. And we need to view it within the context of a safe city. What is a safe city? What is the role of a metro or municipal police within that? And lastly, if the problem is that of low council revenue, can we not monetize that arm by it offering its services to citizens, to corporates, to companies, to entities, so that we're able to then generate money through what I call the metro police. So I think if the problem is that the council does not have revenue, let's be creative about alternative revenue streams. Council can go into business. In the 80s, Ingwe was a milk cow of council. There's internally generated revenue in terms of local governance. Let's look at that as well. Let's look at private-public partnerships, proper, well-modeled, private-public partnerships, whether it's build, own, operate, build, own, transfer, whether it's build, design, own, transfer. But it needs to be effective models of private-public, partnership. So I think we need to look at it more broadly. Instead of just cutting off an arm, we need to think about, okay, we won't be able to move. The municipal police are absolutely important, and it would be a calamity, to actually privatize that. It will cost the city more to do that, both monetarily and in terms of basic services. We've seen what's happened with the TTI, where I believe the council also outsourced something that it could do itself as well. So I think much thought needs to be given to that, and council should not rush into a decision. So at times you'll be trying to kill a rat and then you burn the house. The cost of burning a house is more than that of killing a rat. So it's better to just kill the rat than burn the whole house so that you kill a mouse. So I think it's an ill-advised decision, and council should actually review that decision. Definitely, if we're going to council, it's one of the things that we want to reflect on, we want to review, we want to look at all the contracts that have been signed, and we would like to review all those contracts, because what is important is the best interests of the city of Bulawayo.
I've never imagined Bulawayo without Makokova, So what kind of a city would it be without these guys have a security? Because the municipal police have always been part of the city. They're these are the guys, these are the features that you don't destroy. And in fact, there is an opportunity that you can enhance them. You can make them more productive. You can learn from the neighbors. How have they done that? And Well, I think kulo umuntu ofuna ukulungisa ipensheni yakhe. But let's go to the campaign. I mean, you've spent your time in civil society, economic policy. Now you're supposed to go to the community and say, how is that part? How is the campaigning going?
It's very different, very similar in aspects, because I've been involved with community work for over 25 years. But it's different in that you have to actually associate with a political entity and a political philosophy and ideology, and be very clearly partisan in a way in terms of advancing a certain cause or certain interests or a certain plan of action. So there is that difference. It's definitely more difficult than civil society, because in civil society you are non-partisan, so traffic on both sides doesn't hit you. But if you're a politician, you get hit by traffic coming from both sides. So it's definitely more fast moving, but I think we need to really in the long term change our politics. Politics should be about the contest of ideas more and more. It should be about quality, it should be about content, it should not be about sloganeering, it should not be about just rallies. It should be about ideas, it should be about alternative policies, alternative leadership. So if we're in opposition, we are saying that we want to offer alternative leadership, we want to offer alternative policies, we want to be different from the status quo. I think that's where our politics needs to head for. It needs to evolve from the primitive politics of the 60s and 70s, where it was about the big man, where it was about beating people into submission. Now it has to be about beating people into submission, about ideas, about policies, about alternatives, about the sort of Bulawayo that we want, about the sort of Zimbabwe that we want. Then we should have contestations about that and not personalities.
So kuchanwa ngembono ayikhona ngezandla. You know, the campaign is about money. You know, how is that side going?
Very difficult. You need a lot of resources. You need a lot of resources for your IEC material, for that is your posters, your flyers. You need resources for your teams. You need fuel. My ward is actually the second largest in terms of size in the whole city. So which means you spend more on fuel. At times you have to buy, lunch for your campaign teams. They're all volunteers. You need data to communicate. So it's a very expensive undertaking, financially, physically, materially, mentally, and emotionally. I think that's why some people end up being violent. But it's a very expensive undertaking that one should actually adequately plan for. It's not a walk in the park.
Yeah, I know. Campaign. There's life after campaign. And lastly, I mean, if there is someone here who's watching and wants to vote for you, but they're not sure, why should they vote for Octavius Dumisani Nkomo, who's representing CCC Ward 5 this election?
I think the first thing is about my vision for Bulawayo and for Ward 5. Very clear vision in terms of what needs to be done in terms of infrastructural development, number one. In terms of number two, how we improve service delivery. And number three, how to improve the revenue base of the council. I've talked about twinning. I've talked about private-public partnerships. I will also talk about access to infrastructural grants from your some of the bigger agencies and embassies. I've also talked about leveraging on council properties and not just looking at the individual rate payer as a source of revenue. So once we're able to expand the revenue base of council, council will be able to deliver its services. And I'm saying to you, if you vote for me, I have ideas on how we can expand the revenue base of council. Once we're able to do that, we'll be able to deliver services, we'll be able to build Bulawayo, we'll be able to make Bulawayo the city that we want it to be.
Thank you very much, Babu Nkomo. I mean, that was Dumisani Nkomo, the CCC candidate for Ward 5 in this coming elections, spelling out his views and his vision for the city. And like most of us, I mean, we are for Team Bulawayo. We want Bulawayo to be restored to what it is, to be a clean city, to be a city that we are proud of, to be a city esasisibiza ukuthi isigodlo samakhosi. Amasho ukuthi amakhosi ahambe endaweni elengcekeza kangaka, uthengiswa yonke into everywhere, and ibhasi yathi uthi uyangena ekhoneni le kuthutsha ibhasi angaphi langaphi. You know, we have reduced our city to a growth point. Not only a growth point, but a dirty growth point. And there seems to be very few people who care. And we hope that the comrades that we are going to elect this coming election are also going to be having the city at heart. Because maybe over the years we've been voting people abafuna itenda, angathola itenda ukusupply local imuli yami idle. It's done. So we don't want people with personal interest, but we want people who have community interest, who want to see the city developing. And we'll be talking to a number of councillors, a number of MPs, so that sizwe ukuthi bona ivision yabo imengaphi when it comes to Bulawayo, because that's the only thing that we have. And if we destroy this town, where are we going to go? So kumele sibuyele futhi ePlumtree siyeqalisa ukudinga labo kwakule mizi yethu khona. So I think we are not thinking long term. And that's the challenge that we have with a lot of people who are in leadership positions, because bafuna ukuthi bedle bona and forget that it's about the community. My name is Zenzele Ndebele, and let's meet again in other programs.